Hi everybody, my name is Billy Sheehan. I'm a bass player, and we're going to do some bass playing today for all the bass kids ready to take over the world. Before we do that, we better tune up, so I'll give you some notes on the bass so you can play along with me. So here's the first note, of course, your favorite, G. There you have it right there. And of course, the ever popular D note. Third in the series, who could forget the A note? Of course, last but not least, an E note. Now, you can rewind and do that again if you didn't get it the first time, and then we can play some bass together. There's lots of ways to play bass. I'm a finger player myself. I play with my fingers, meaning I pluck the bass with my right hand. I use all of my fingers and my thumb, but there are many different combinations you can use yourself. Whatever you happen to prefer, whatever's best for you, your music or the way you want to express yourself best. Some people use a pick. Some people pluck with just their thumb. That was very popular in the old days. Some guys just use one finger, and some guys use 2, 3, or 4. So today we're going to go over all the different combinations, show you how each one works, and you can make a choice as to which one would be best for you, or see how maybe you could add to what you're doing already to maybe learn some more things about playing with your fingers. Okay, so now some of the old ways of playing, like I mentioned earlier, with the thumb. Some guys just play like a lot of old rock and roll and a lot of country and western guys, that's all they need is their thumb. Some players now use thumb slapping. That's a whole different kind of technique, which we'll get into much later. But just thumb playing is very simple. Also, single finger playing is very useful for a lot of things. I still do it. When you only need one note, why tire out all your other fingers when you can do it with just one? Very simple. One very important thing about all finger playing, if you're using fingers to pluck, it's very important to have your thumb anchored at some point on the bass so that you can pull against it, and that's how you get your strength, by pulling against that thumb, whether you use 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 6 fingers. If you happen to be so endowed, you always need your thumb to be locked somewhere to pluck against. That's one very important point, and you'll see why that's important as we go on. Now, generally, most playing requires at least 2 fingers. Mostly. It's not always true, but that's what we'll get to now, where we play with 2 fingers. Some guys use the first 2 on their hand. I switch back between using these 2 and sometimes using these 2. The reason for that for me is just because I'm kind of used to it, and that's why I've been doing it for many years. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Just as any kind of playing that you're doing, there's no right or wrong way of doing things. There's just certain ways are better for you, certain ways aren't. So we'll try to explain to you what I do. If that's better for you, good. If it's not, then you can probably come up with your own way, but this will help illustrate to you how to come up with your own way. Anyway, so 2 fingers generally. You have your thumb locked somewhere. Generally, I have mine right here, and you pluck with these 2 fingers back and forth pretty evenly along in time with the music. So, and then as music changes and different styles, we'll show you the different ways you can use them. So for me, it's either these 2 or with these 2 fingers. But notice always my thumb has a spot to anchor itself. So again, these 2 or these 2. That's when I use 2-finger technique, that's the way that I do it. Okay, so as an exercise for 3 fingers, since most of the music we play in popular or modern music is cut into 2s or 4s rhythm-wise, I try, since 3 is an odd number and 2 and 4 are even numbers, I try to play 4 on 3 fingers. And it goes like this. A little confusing, but stick with me here. I'll explain it to you. So when we play 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, what happens is 1 lands on a different finger each time. Here's what I mean by that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, even though my fingers are going in the same direction. like that. So the reason for that is, since you want to play 4 smoothly, you have to get your fingers used to playing any one of the notes in a series of 4, be it 1, 2, 3, or 4. Any finger should be able to do any of those. So when I'm playing, a good exercise is just to get like a metronome or a click track and count 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, go. 1, 1, see, I'll accent 1 each time so you hear a little louder than the other notes. See, now you're hearing 4, but I'm playing it with 3 fingers. So that's generally the exercise that I do most. I just sit around at home with the remote control watching TV, put it down, and I'll go. And try to just keep 4 as smooth as possible. So that way, when you play with the drummer, you're in time with them. And it's, as you'll find out, drummers get real upset when you don't play in time with them. But an exercise you can do, another one, is just to go across the strings playing that same pattern. So you'll be going 1, 2, 3, 4 on one string, 1, 2, 3, 4 on another string, and so on, all the way down, back and forth, back and forth. So you get used to moving your hands across the strings while doing a pattern of 4 with 3 fingers. A little confusing. Here's how it works. So we go. So what I'm doing is going 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4 again. My fingers are always remaining in sequence. In other words, it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. See what I mean? So we're cutting an even number with an odd number of fingers, and one lands on a different finger each time. So to go across the strings like that, it doesn't even matter what you're playing with your left hand. At this point, we're just working on the right hand. Try to get that real smooth and real strong. The stronger it is, the smoother it will be. And bass players, of course, it's a strength instrument. You really have to play it hard to make the instrument sound, to get the note off of it, to really make it work. If you're playing very lightly and if your fingers aren't sore, you're probably not doing it right. So make sure your fingers get good and sore when you do this and really work hard at it. Build up a callus, which will also help the tone of your fingers as well. Another point. So that's the 3-finger exercise. That's best. There are other ones we'll get to as we go on. So now sometimes you'll see me using 4 fingers, which is not a very common technique. And also, believe it or not, it's not one that's useful all of the time. I use it just for special little things in passing, occasional special licks. But a lot of players are worried that they don't use enough fingers or they don't use 4 fingers, then they're not a good player. It's not true. You can be an incredible player using a pick or just your thumb or just 1 finger. You don't always need to use 4. So don't feel badly about it if you're not using 4 fingers. If you'd like to try it, you can. And I'll show you some exercises you can do for that and some licks you can play with that. But generally, 4 fingers is a little bit odd because your hand, you'll notice, the fingers aren't even. They make a wide arc there, where in order to make them even, I have to bend my hand so that it becomes flat like that, and I can play, and all the fingers hit the string at the same time. So it's a little bit of an odd thing, and not everyone's hand bends that way. So that means it's a technique that isn't right for everyone all the time. But as I said, it's a specialized technique. You may find it valuable, you may find it useless. So it's your choice. So with your own artistic interpretation of your music, what's the best thing for it? But I'll explain some exercises you can do for that, and it can help you out if you do want to try using 4 fingers. Okay, now 4 fingers, generally you always got to keep in mind that I have my thumb anchored somewhere, and that helps out a lot. For several reasons. I explained earlier, it's good to have the thumb anchored to have the strength of your fingers pushing against it or pulling against it. But also when you're on stage and playing live, which is what you should be doing, turn this video off and go out and play live after this. And it's very important to have that because as you're moving around on the stage, you're going to need to have your hand stable on the instrument in a solid position. Because as you run around back and forth and fall over the monitors and dodge the bottles being thrown at you. It's very important to have your hand in a good spot where you know where you are in your instrument all the time. As you're reaching for your mic, you don't have to think about where your hand is because you know where it is. It's right there where your thumb keeps it. So very important to have that there. Again, that's another reason. But also you'll see on the four-finger technique, it's very important because you need a lot of strength on the little finger. The little finger is the smallest and weakest finger. So in order to get that to work with four-finger technique, you got to really have that thumb anchored there. So what we're going to basically do is just roll the fingers across the string. See that, how it works? Now sometimes I'll move my anchor and move it to a different spot, but I'll always have it there. And you'll find generally that the four-finger technique is most effective on the higher strings because it needs to be very, very accurate. And on the lower strings, it just gets kind of woofy and not quite as effective. But what I generally use the four-finger technique for is a lick like this, for example. See how my four fingers go across? 1, 2, 4 fingers go across. So that's kind of a four-finger thing. And again, that's a specialized lick that you wouldn't use a lot of times. Another four-fingered move that I do is where you do 2 notes on each string and cascade down what's called a rake. We'll explain that to you later too. What that is I'll go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. See how that works? My hand, the fingers always go in sequence, and it always slides across the strings without a lot of effort, and the fingers don't move around a lot. They just hit the string they're supposed to hit and get out of the way. Barely any movement at all. So that's what it sounds sped up, and the kind of lick you can do with it. See how that works? Another four-finger lick. Again, that's not a real common lick, and not something you really need to know to play basic bass or to get along in a band, but it's a good thing to know. And also, when I've learned a technique like this, when I was younger, I saw someone do something similar, I began to experiment with myself and came up with my own ideas. So even though you may not use a four-finger technique or any of the things I'm showing you may help you come up with other ideas, to come up with your own fingering techniques and your own creative ways of playing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to run about 16 bars of a drum machine, and I'm going to play along with it. And when I do that, I'm going to try to do all the techniques I explained to you. And because I'm playing in music, in the form of music, it's not going to be as stiff, and I'm going to be moving around from single finger, double finger, triple, and four fingers. I'll try and put all of them in a short amount of space. And you can see how they work with each other, how I change from one to the other. And of course, you've got rewind on your VCR, so you can always rewind it and watch it